Little review of calculations with sig figs here. We had two rules, one for multiplication and division, the other for addition and subtraction. Let's take a look at these. I boiled it down to what to do. For multiplication and division, what we're going to do is we're going to count sig figs least limits. So what we're saying here, just like we said in class, was that we're going to count the number of sig figs in the operation, and the least number of sig figs in the operation tells us how many sig figs there will be in the answer. We'll do a couple of examples in a minute and clarify that a little more. For addition and subtraction, what we're going to do is we're going to count decimal places least limits. Again, instead of counting sig figs for addition and subtraction, we're going to count decimal places and in the operation, and the number in the operation with the least number of decimal places is going to tell us how many decimal places our answer will have. So let's do a couple of examples here. I've got 30.27 times 1.5. We've got multiplication. So right away I know I'm going to count sig figs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count the sig figs in my operation, and I can know how many decimal places, how many sig figs are going to be in my answer before I go ahead and grab my calculator. Here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sig figs. This 0 is significant because it's captive. So I've got 4 sig figs here. I've got 2 sig figs here. So the least number of sig figs in this operation is 2. My answer should go to 2 sig figs. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a calculator, and I'm going to do my calculation and get a calculator answer and then round it to the right number of sig figs. So I've got 30.27 times 1.5, which is going to be equal to 45.405. 45.405. Yes. 405 is going to be my calculator answer. I know that I need 2 sig figs in my answer, 2 sig figs based on the least number of sig figs here in this 1.5. So that means it'll be 4, 5, and I'm going to ditch the rest. But before I do that, I take a look at this 4. This 4 is less than 5, so it's not going to make this 5 round up to a 6. So my answer is just 45. Let's take a look down here. I've got 1 decimal place here. I've got 4 decimal places here. My answer won't have more than 1 decimal place in it. So when I go, because least limits, this is my least number of decimal places. So I'm going to grab my calculator again, get a calculator answer, 13.4 minus 2.0156, enter. I get 11.3844 as my calculator answer. 11.3844 is my calculator answer, but I know that I've only got 1 decimal place in my answer because I've got 1 decimal place here. I've got 4 decimal places here. 1 is my least number of decimal places. So again, I'm not worried about sig figs this time. So it's 11 point. I'm going to get rid of everything after the 3, but this 8 is greater than 5, so that makes that 3 round up to a 4. Oops. And that is my answer, 11.4. It becomes more difficult when we have multiple operations in the same problem. In this case, I've got subtraction going on and division. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this in steps. Although they're not written here, it's understood that there are parentheses here. So I follow my order of operations. I'm going to do this subtraction first. So let's go ahead and do the subtraction. So I've got 9.5 minus 4.10 minus 3.175, and I hit enter and I get 2.225. So that's going to wind up being 2.225 divided by 3.25. And I need to keep track of my sig figs, but I'm going to keep everything in the calculation. I did subtraction to get to this 2.225, so I'm going to count decimal places. I've got one decimal place here, I've got two decimal places here, I've got three decimal places here. My least number of decimal places is 1. So I'm going to put a little line here. That tells me that when I go to count my sig figs in my final answer, these two digits out here, this 2 and 5, don't really count. I'm going to use them in my calculation. I'm going to stick them in my calculator. But when I count my sig figs, I'm not going to count them. So let's go ahead and do the math here. Grab my calculator again. 2.225 divided by 3.25. Hit enter, and I get a whole bunch of stuff here. 0.6846. So let me write this down here. 0.6846. Keep going here. 1538.153846. Now I know I don't want to keep all those. That's way too many sig figs. At this point I ask myself, what did I do? What math operation did I do to get to this final answer? Well, the answer is I divided. So for division, multiplication and division, I count sig figs. So I'm going to go back to my operation, and I've got 3 sig figs in 3.25, and in 2.2, because I'm going to ignore these 2 at the end, in 2.2 I have 2 sig figs. So that means my answer is only going to go to 2 sig figs. So I get 0.68, and that's it. The 4 keeps this an 8, and I'm done. So again, with multiple operations in the same calculation, take it in steps, and it should go well.